Today we're signing, this is a very historic and executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile. This is a promise that you made throughout the campaign, and today we're keeping that promise. The reserve will be capitalized with Bitcoin that the federal government already owns, so it won't cost taxpayers a dime. This is like a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. And premature sales of Bitcoin over the past years cost American taxpayers over $17 billion in lost value because we didn't have a long-term strategy.
Right.
Now we do. So.
And this is something you believe in?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
And the whole community believes in it.
Very good. You made the promise, right?
How much do you think he knows about what he's doing? President Donald Trump tonight in the Oval Office signing an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset stockpile, a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. My questions extend beyond whether or not the president understands what he's doing. My questions extend to who is going to make money off this and who is going to lose money off this, and what does it mean to have the U.S. government working in this field in this way. Joining us now is New York Times reporter who has been covering whatever it was Trump did tonight, since it was just something the crypto industry hoped he would do on his first day in office. David Yaffe-Bellamy is a reporter for the New York Times. David, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This strikes me because the president is personally invested in cryptocurrency, and because we've never before had the federal government involved in holding cryptocurrency. And because he has surrounded himself with people who are fighting all government regulation on cryptocurrency. This strikes me as the stickiest hot lava pit of scandal I have ever seen any animal try to escape from. That said, I do not understand cryptocurrency very well. Are my instincts unfounded here? How do you see this?
I like to think of this as the sort of purest form of a classic Trumpian conflict of interest that we've seen play out many times since 2016. It's just like the Trump Hotel back in the first term. It's another way that people who want to get access to the president, who want to influence the president, can spend money to do that in a kind of informal way that has very little oversight.
Well, you can do that by buying the Trump coins from which he and his family financially benefit. You can literally just buy as much of that as you want. There's no disclosure requirements in terms of saying who you are or being a foreigner or anything like that, and the money just goes to Trump. So it's an open funnel to bribe the president if you are so inclined. What new dynamic is introduced into either that process or the broader process of enriching the president or unenriching the American people by having the government hold a reserve of cryptocurrencies?
Well, it means that, Trump could take steps to boost the kind of crypto economy, sort of aimed at making this kind of stockpile a success. It sort of creates an incentive for him to strip regulations away from an industry that has a long track record of scams, fraud, manipulation in all sorts of ways. And so, those conflict of interests, combined with, the pressures that he feels from sort of industry figures who want these sorts of changes, results in the leash coming off a highly volatile world.
In terms of the volatility of this world, I mean, you've reported on the SEC, as you put it, backing away from the push during President Biden's administration to regulate cryptocurrency in some of the same ways that stocks and bonds are regulated, essentially to treat them as a speculative instrument that can be used by wise investors, but can also be used by wise scam artists to separate dupes from their money. How far along did President Biden get down that road, and how much of that is being reversed by Trump?
The Biden administration got pretty far down that road. Gary Gensler, who was the chair of the SEC under Biden, filed lawsuits against many of the biggest crypto companies in the country, essentially advancing exactly the argument that you just outlined, that there's nothing that new about crypto. It's just like a stock. It's like any old security, and it should be subject to these same strict regulations that are designed to protect consumers and make sure they're not manipulated and defrauded. Those cases were pending in court. We were looking at potentially a years-long legal battle that could have reached the Supreme Court over some of those claims. And in the space of a few weeks, the Trump administration has more or less fully reversed that. The biggest of those lawsuits have been dropped. Investigations into other crypto companies have been halted. And now many of those leading figures who are being sued by the SEC are going to show up at the White House tomorrow for a meeting with Trump.
for people who are listening to this interview right now and they're thinking, I got feelings about this crypto thing, but I've never quite felt like I understood it. Now that this is something that the government is treating in a very different way than they ever had before, what would you say to people who feel like they don't understand it, but they're worried that this is dangerous?
It used to be the case that crypto was walled off from the real economy,
Yes.
the economy that most of us were invested in. In 2022, the crypto world crashed. People called it crypto's Great Recession, but most people didn't notice because they didn't have money invested in it, and the people who lost out were the ones who kind of knew they were getting into something risky. But that's starting to change. This reserve is a step in that direction. Slowly, crypto is kind of seeping into the traditional economy. It's becoming more available to people through their brokerage accounts. And it's setting up a scenario in which next time this highly volatile industry crashes, ordinary people could feel the effects in a much more profound way.
Which is why it might make sense as it spreads out for it to become more regulated and more safe, so there's less opportunity for people to get scammed. Instead, it's just getting bigger with less rules. David Yaffe-Bellany from the New York Times. Thank you for helping me understand. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.